What happens when a business mogul with an ego the size of Manhattan walks onto late-night television thinking he owns the place, only to meet a host who refuses to play along? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most explosive moments in late-night television history. AI confrontation so intense it ended with security being called and the guest being escorted offset. The green room at the Ed Sullivan Theater buzzed with the usual pre-show energy. Makeup artists dabbed at faces, and production assistants hurried around with clipboards making last-minute adjustments. Sitting in a leather chair, Donald Trump adjusted his tie and checked his reflection in the mirror one more time. His media handler, a nervous woman in her 30s, kept glancing at her watch. "Remember, Mr. Trump," she reminded him, "this is supposed to be a light conversation about your new book and maybe some real estate ventures. David likes to keep things conversational, maybe even a little playful." Her voice carried just a hint of concern. Trump dismissed her with a wave. "I've been doing television since before that gap-toothed comedian knew what a camera was. I know how to handle David Letterman." His handler bit her lip but stayed quiet. She had worked with enough high-profile clients to know when someone was set on doing things their own way, no matter the advice. Meanwhile, in his office, adjacent to the studio, David Letterman was reviewing his notes with his head writer. Index cards were spread across the desk, each filled with possible questions and topics. "We've got the book, the casinos, maybe something about his golf courses," the writer suggested. "Pretty standard Trump stuff." Letterman nodded, though his expression suggested he had other plans. "You know," he said, "I've been reading some interesting articles about his business practices. The way he handles contractors and payments. Some fascinating stuff." The writer glanced up. "Dave, you know how he gets when anyone questions his business methods. Remember the last time someone brought up his bankruptcies? He walked out." Letterman smirked. "Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. Maybe it's time someone asked questions that actually matter, instead of lobbing softballs." 20 minutes later, the familiar strains of the Late Show theme music filled the studio as Letterman made his entrance. The audience cheered while he delivered his monologue, his sharp edge hinting that tonight's interview would be more than just another celebrity chat. "Our next guest is a man who needs no introduction, though he'll probably give himself one anyway," Letterman quipped, drawing laughs. "He's got a new book out, he builds things, he owns things, and he's got opinions about pretty much everything. Please welcome Donald Trump." Trump strode confidently onto the stage, shook Letterman's hand, and took his seat, angling himself toward the audience more than toward the host. "Donald, good to see you again," Letterman began, shuffling through his cards. "Thanks for coming on the show." "Always a pleasure, Dave. I love coming here. Great audience, great show. Though I have to say your ratings could use a little work," Trump replied with a grin. Letterman's smile stayed fixed, though his eyes narrowed slightly. "We're doing just fine in the ratings, thanks. So tell us about this new book of yours." "It's called The Art of the Comeback, and it's already a bestseller, which doesn't surprise me because everything I touch turns to gold," Trump boasted. "It's about how I've overcome every obstacle and every challenge, and how anyone can do the same, if they have the right mindset and, let's be honest, the right genes." "The right genes," Letterman repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Absolutely," Trump said firmly. "You either have it or you don't. Intelligence, drive, natural ability to succeed, or you're stuck in mediocrity your whole life. It's just genetics, Dave. Some people are born winners. Some people are born losers." The audience shifted uncomfortably at this remark. Letterman leaned back in his chair, eyeing his guest with renewed curiosity. "That's a pretty harsh way to look at the world, don't you think? What about people who work hard, but didn't have the same advantages as you?" Trump's expression hardened. "Look, I started with a small loan from my father and built an empire. Anyone could have done it if they had the vision and the intelligence. The problem is most people don't." "A small loan?" Letterman repeated slowly. "What exactly do you consider a small loan, Donald?" "Well, it was $1 million, Trump said casually. "But in business terms, that's pocket change. I turned that into billions. That's the kind of return on investment that separates the wheat from the chaff." Letterman set his cue cards aside and looked Trump directly in the eye. "$1 million is pocket change? Donald, do you have any idea what $1 million means to most families in America? That's more money than they'll see in their entire lives." Trump shifted in his chair, his media-trained smile starting to look strained. "Dave, you're missing the point. It's not about the amount, it's about what you do with it. Most people, if you gave them $1 million, they'd waste it on cars and vacations. 5 years later, they'd have nothing left. I multiplied it thousands of times over. Letterman leaned forward. But don't you think it's a little tone-deaf to call $1 million loan from your father pocket change? Especially when so many people are struggling just to pay rent? The studio seemed to chill, the energy tightening. Trump's grin evaporated, replaced with a defensive edge. Now wait just a minute, Dave. I didn't come on your show to be lectured about economics by a comedian who's probably never made a real business decision in his life. I've built skyscrapers, casinos, golf courses. What have you built, other than a career making fun of people? Letterman's smile sharpened, no longer playful. Well, Donald, I've built a career by asking the questions people want answered. And right now I'm curious about something I read recently, about how you treat the people who work for you. The audience shifted uneasily, sensing the mood change. Letterman leaned in, serious. Trump's jaw tightened and he squared his shoulders like a boxer bracing for the next punch. What exactly are you getting at, Dave? Trump asked, his voice carrying the warning tone of a man not used to being challenged. I've been reading reports about contractors who worked on your properties, Letterman said evenly. There seems to be a pattern of them not getting paid what they were promised. Small business owners, family companies, people who did the work, but somehow never got their full compensation. Trump's face flushed. His hands gripped the arms of his chair. That is absolutely false. And frankly, I'm insulted you'd bring up garbage like that on national television. My company pays everyone exactly what they deserve. We have some of the best legal teams in the country to make sure our contracts are ironclad. But Donald, Letterman pressed, these aren't just rumors. There are court documents, legal filings from dozens of contractors. Are you saying all of them are lying? I'm saying that in business, Dave, sometimes people don't live up to their end of the bargain. Sometimes work isn't finished on time, or it doesn't meet standards. Sometimes there are disputes over quality. That's business. That's the real world, not some fantasy land where everyone gets a participation trophy. Letterman shuffled papers on his desk, and Trump's eyes darted toward them uneasily. So when a small electrical company in Atlantic City says you owed them $80,000 for work on one of your casinos, but they had to settle for $20,000 just to avoid bankruptcy, you're saying that was their fault? That their work wasn't good enough? I don't know what specific case you're talking about, Trump snapped. And frankly, I don't appreciate you ambushing me with this nonsense. You said this was going to be about my book, about my success, not some hit job based on disgruntled contractors who couldn't hack it in a competitive industry. The studio fell silent. The audience watched, riveted, as if witnessing a slow-motion car crash. Paul Schaefer, the bandleader, shifted uncomfortably behind his keyboard, unsure if this was scripted or spiraling out of control. Donald, I'm not ambushing you, Letterman replied firmly. I'm asking legitimate questions. These are public records, court filings anyone can read. I just want to know how you justify leaving small businesses high and dry. Trump half rose from his seat before sitting back down, his agitation undeniable. You want to know how I justify it? I justify it by building a multi-billion-dollar empire, by creating thousands of jobs, by contributing more to the economy than you ever will. I justify it by succeeding in a brutal business while guys like you sit in studios taking cheap shots. Sit down, Donald. We're not done here, Letterman cut in, his voice steady and authoritative, the voice of a man who had ruled his stage for decades. I think the audience deserves to know how someone who claims to be a great businessman can leave so many people holding the bag. Don't tell me to sit down, Trump barked, his voice rising. This is supposed to be an interview, not an interrogation. I've been doing talk shows longer than you've been hosting them, and I know the difference between real questions and a setup. A setup? Letterman countered. Donald, these are your own business records. I'm not inventing anything. I'm reading from court documents that are a matter of public record. If asking about your documented business practices is a setup, maybe the problem isn't with the questions. Trump leaned forward aggressively, jabbing a finger at Letterman. You know what your problem is, Dave? You've been doing this show so long you think you're some kind of journalist, but you're not. You're an entertainer, and not even a very good one anymore. Your time is up and everyone knows it except you. The words landed like a punch, and the audience gasped audibly at the personal attack. Letterman's expression darkened, and for a moment the polished facade of late-night television vanished. My time is up? Let me tell you something, Donald. I've been in this business long enough to recognize a bully when I see one, and right now, I'm looking at a man who thinks he can intimidate his way out of answering legitimate questions about how he treats working people. Trump shot back instantly, his voice sharp and defensive. You want to talk about bullying? You invited me here under false pretenses. You're attacking my reputation with unsubstantiated claims, and you're doing it in front of a national television audience. If anyone's a bully here, it's you. Unsubstantiated? Letterman snapped. Donald, I have the court documents right here. I can read you the case numbers if you want. These aren't allegations. These are legal judgments, settlements, documented cases where your company agreed to pay less than what was originally owed. Trump stood, his face red with anger. You know what, Dave? I don't need this. I don't need to sit here and listen to some washed-up comedian try to make himself look important by tearing down someone who's actually accomplished something in life. Sit back down. We're in the middle of an interview, Letterman ordered. The interview is over. I'm done with this garbage, Trump barked, yanking at his microphone. Letterman rose as well, his voice rising to match Trump's fury. You can't just walk away every time someone asks you a tough question. That's not how the real world works. The real world, Trump sneered. You want to talk about the real world? In the real world, results matter. Success matters. I built an empire while you built a career making stupid human tricks famous. The audience buzzed, split between boos and cheers, the tension electric and volatile, like a powder keg waiting for a spark. Letterman moved closer to Trump's chair, his tone deadly serious. In the real world, Donald, successful people don't need to stiff contractors to make their profit margins work. Successful people honor their commitments and treat their workers with respect. What you're describing isn't success, it's exploitation. Exploitation? Trump shot back. You want to see exploitation? Look at how television networks treat their employees. Look at how they cancel shows without warning. How they throw people away the minute ratings dip. Don't lecture me about exploitation when your entire industry is built on using people up and spitting them out. We're not talking about television, Letterman countered sharply. We're talking about your business practices and your documented history of not paying what you owe. Trump ripped his microphone free, his movements sharp, his breathing heavy. I don't owe you or anyone else in this audience an explanation for how I run my businesses. I've been more successful than anyone in this room, and certainly more than a host who peaked in the 80s. The atmosphere in the studio was combustible. The set no longer felt like a late-night stage but a boxing ring, with two heavyweights circling each other under the blinding lights while the audience sat frozen, unable to look away. Trump now clutched his microphone in his hand like a weapon, while Letterman stood behind his desk, the wood and steel acting as a barrier between him and his volatile guest. You know what, Dave? Trump snarled, his voice booming across the studio without amplification. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball. You want to talk about my business practices? Fine, let's talk about yours. How much do you pay your writers? How much do you pay the people who make this show possible while you take home millions? Letterman's voice was steady, but there was steel underneath. This isn't about me, Donald. This is about you and your documented pattern of cheating working people out of money they earned. Cheating? Trump roared. That's slander, Dave, and you know it. That's actionable slander. And I have witnesses. He gestured wildly toward the audience. You just accused me of cheating people on national television without a shred of proof. I have court documents, Donald, Letterman shot back. I have legal settlements. I have documented cases where your company agreed to pay less than the contracted amount. That's not slander, that's fact. Trump stepped closer to the desk, jabbing a finger toward Letterman. Those are business disputes, not cheating. That's how negotiation works in the real world. Sometimes contracts get renegotiated. Sometimes timelines aren't met. Sometimes quality isn't good enough. That's business. Letterman's reply came like a hammer blow. Circumstances like a small business owner who can't afford to fight you in court for years. Circumstances like people who need to feed their families and can't wait for your lawyers to finish playing games. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the restless stir of an audience that knew they were witnessing history. The audience was no longer just watching. They were part of the moment, shouting in support of one side or the other, until the atmosphere felt less like a late-night talk show and more like a political rally spiraling out of control. Trump's voice cut through the noise, sharp and heated. You don't know what you're talking about, he snapped at Letterman. You sit in your ivory tower making jokes about people who actually work for a living, who actually build things, who actually create value. You're nothing but a parasite feeding off other people's accomplishments. Letterman stepped out from behind his desk, closing the gap between them. His voice was steady, but his anger was visible. A parasite, Donald? I've been entertaining people for 30 years. I've given thousands of people jobs. I've supported charities. I've used this platform to help people. What have you done besides enrich yourself? Trump's face reddened. What have I done? I've built hotels that employ thousands. I've created jobs in construction, hospitality, entertainment. I've revitalized neighborhoods and brought commerce where there was none. I've done more for working people than you ever will. Letterman didn't flinch. By not paying them what you owe. By stiffing small businesses who can't afford to fight you in court. I've given them opportunities they never would have had otherwise. Trump barked. I take risks. I invest when others are too scared. That's leadership. Leadership? Letterman laughed bitterly. Leadership is keeping your word. Leadership is honoring your commitments. Leadership is not hiding behind lawyers while people go hungry waiting for what you owe. The tension escalated when Trump suddenly slammed his microphone onto Letterman's desk, making pens and papers jump. I don't have to listen to this garbage from someone who's never built anything, never risked anything, never put his own money on the line. Get away from my desk, Donald. Make me, Trump growled. The words hung in the air like a gauntlet thrown. For a moment it seemed the two men might actually fight on national television. The audience now hushed, sensed they were witnessing something dangerous. Letterman's voice dropped to a whisper that cut through the silence. I'm asking you one more time to sit down so we can finish this interview like adults. Trump sneered. Adults? Adults don't ambush their guests with character assassinations. Adults don't invite someone on under false pretenses and then attack them with lies. They're not lies, Donald. Every word I've said is documented. Trump picked the microphone back up, and for a terrifying moment it looked like he might throw it. Instead, he held it in his hand, then raised it as if to speak. You know the difference between you and me, Dave? I fight back. When people attack me, I don't just sit there like a whipped dog. I fight back and I win. This isn't a fight, Donald. This is an interview. You're being asked to account for your actions. Account to who? To you? You're nobody, Dave. A failed comedian who got lucky with a time slot, and now you think you're some kind of moral authority? Trump's tirade was cut short when two security guards appeared at the edge of the stage, summoned by the frantic producer signaling from the wings. Trump's outrage flared. Are you kidding me? You're calling security on me? On your own guest? I didn't call anyone, Donald, Letterman replied evenly. But maybe ask yourself why they felt the need to come out here. This is unbelievable, Trump raged. I came here as a courtesy to boost your pathetic ratings, and this is how you treat me? Ambush questions and security guards? One of the guards stepped forward calmly. Sir, we're going to need you to come with us. Don't touch me. Trump snapped, backing away. I know my rights and I know assault when I see it. Nobody's touching you, sir. We're asking you to come with us. The audience sat in stunned silence as Trump looked around the studio, searching for allies. Letterman, arms folded, waited behind his desk. This is the biggest mistake of your career, Dave, Trump shouted. When people see how you treated a guest, a successful businessman who came here in good faith, your show is finished. My show will be fine, Donald. The question is whether you'll be fine when people see how you handle tough questions about your business practices. Escorted toward the wings, Trump turned back one last time. You're washed up, Dave. Your time is over and everyone knows it except you. This desperate attempt to stay relevant by attacking successful people is pathetic. Thanks for stopping by, Letterman said flatly. As the security guards led Trump off stage, he kept shouting, You'll regret this, Dave. Nobody treats Donald Trump like this and gets away with it. His voice echoed from the wings as the audience sat frozen, unsure whether to clap, jeer, or remain silent. Letterman straightened his tie, smoothed his hair, and looked into the camera. Well, folks, that's something you don't see every day. We'll be right back after this commercial break. The studio cut to commercial as producers scrambled backstage. Trump ranted about lawsuits and revenge, and the stunned audience tried to process what they had just witnessed. It would go down as one of the most explosive confrontations in late-night television history. What do you think? Was Letterman right to press Trump about his business practices? Or did he cross a line with how he handled his guest? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe for more dramatic stories from the world of entertainment.